Well, that was actually pretty handy. I expected that to take a lot longer to get the parts for. Now, searching for the thing ready to build. Yeah, when you've been playing the game for this long, it's a long, 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 long list. But it was much easier to actually find the parts for this because he is a guaranteed spawn. Because to get this, you have to take on the xealoid Prelate. This is the thing that comes out of Arlo in the whole emissary side of Nightwave. Just simply because there's only really 4 parts, 2 blades, the subcortex, and the blueprint. It also needs 5 neuros, so I'm just going to set this thing off to build and watch it build. It should appear on here. Oh, it actually does. You can barely see it there being made. I'm going to leave that. I want to see it spinning on there. It's really nice to see it spinning round there. I miss that. There's just not enough things to build anymore. Oh, wow, it has 2. A D. Oh, viral. And a V. Building it for crit using... well, a lot of people are going to say it, so why not? The sacrificial steel and the sacrificial pressure. Yes, that will take it to about 30% status chance. There are blood rush in here, bit of berserker. Not a bad little weapon. You will obviously also need organ shatter, which will give it a 4 times multiplier. Not a bad little setup actually. It worked pretty well for crit. There's just one major problem with that. That is sacrificial pressure. It doesn't go as high as prime pressure point, which does 165% melee damage, meaning yes, you may have the multiplier which gives you more damage, but it would be so much more if that sacrificial pressure did more melee damage, sadly. But building it for crit, this doesn't work out to be bad at all. I personally wanted to build this thing for status because it's a status based weapon. It got 30% status rather than the 15% crit chance with a 2.1 times multiplier, which are the base stats of course. Even on throwing, 15% crit chance, 2.1 multiplier, and 30% status, and the same goes over to the charged throw. So building this for crit was honestly kind of a no-brainer. The only problem is Blood Rush is a 15-point mod, the sacrificial pressure, the sacrificial steel mean that you need Umbra, so true steel, prime pressure point will work just as well, but you won't be able to get the same kind of crit chance starting off to give Blood Rush, which is 165% crit chance with the combo counter, enough of a go. Obviously things like body count work really well in conjunction with Blood Rush, but remember this thing has viral, so if you want to change the elemental type you are probably going to need to format this maybe a couple Vs, at least maybe 2 Vs on this are going to help it so much, considering, well, the D makes a little bit of sense when you think about things like healing return or life strike. That's not what I put in there. I put in drifting contact for 10-second combo duration to go and coincide with Blood Rush. But this thing, when you throw it in flight or upon contact with enemy, will release a maggot. If the maggot actually did what the maggots are supposed to do, it would heal you as it attached to an enemy. It doesn't really do that, whereas healing return would kind of affect it. Not so much. Where this thing kind of comes into its own is the fact that, yes, it's a glaive, you can throw it. You can also, while using this, as long as you have a single-handed secondary weapon equipped, you can also use the secondary weapon while you wait for the melee weapon to come back to you. So it's kind of good for crowd control, considering it was a Nightwave boss weapon. Compared to the wolf sledge, this thing was tons easier to get a hold of. The wolf sledge is still a pretty hard weapon to get him to drop. This was a pretty much guaranteed part drop every time. The boss fight was actually great, but the reward, it's good, apart from the fact that it has viral damage, which makes it useless against the infested. Well, not useless, but less effective against the infested. Better against the corpus and the grineer, but it's just, I like the weapon. It's not really good for higher level stuff. It's still a pretty decent melee weapon if you are running it with a single-handed secondary, so you can dual wield them. Yep, I love dual wielding, so that kind of worked out pretty well. It's as a glaive, I didn't particularly like it. The glaive side of it was good for summoning the magots. The rest of it was all pretty useful, and it's not that bad of a melee weapon. It's still pretty good, but it's still a glaive at the end of the day, which means that there are a lot of weapons better than this. Glaives really need not a buff to glaives, but a really good glaive to come out that just annihilates all of them, which is what I was hoping from this, but it's not quite there yet. They're getting there. Maybe in the next glaive will actually be more damaging than the other ones are, because they keep releasing glaives that do the same damage as the rest of them. Different ways that they do damage, but they still do damage to the same amount. But anyway, we'll leave this off here for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.